interpretation. I'm joined now by Congressman Roger Krishnamoorthi, who sits on the House Intelligence and Oversight Committee, and Peter Baker, Chief White House Correspondent for the New York Times. Congressman, what this idea that the guy says one day when the cameras are on, no interruption by the president, no attempt to intervene in that case up in New York involving Cohen, and of course by perforce Cohen, the president himself, and now he comes out in the hearing and said, well, I'm taking that back. I can't deny the president got involved.
Clearly there seems to be a contradiction between what he said in open setting and what he said in the closed setting. But this is par for the course, Chris. I mean, we've seen the president tell Comey to lay off Mike Flynn, and then he told Rod Rosenstein that there's a red line around his personal finances. And this time he found somebody, Matt Whitaker, who apparently may have actually engaged in substantive discussions with him about the ongoing investigation. I heard Mr. Whitaker was a bodybuilder. He's been doing some heavy lifting for the president.
Well, what do you think about obstruction of justice as heavy lifting? I mean, the fact is, you're not supposed to call up and switch prosecutors if you got a guy who's in that case that's connected with you. In other words, you serve to benefit from if you're judge shopping, in this case, prosecution shopping. That is obstruction. You're changing the prosecutor.
Yeah. He is the target of this potential probe, and therefore, trying to corruptly influence the administration of justice might be construed as obstruction of justice here. And so I think it's something that has to be investigated.
Let me go to Peter on this. Peter, this story is a New York story, and I'm just wondering, the U.S. Attorney in New York, why would he want this guy Jeff Berman in there?
Well, you have to assume he wants Jeff Berman in there because he thinks Jeff Berman is going to be running it in a way more conducive to what the president wants him to do. Otherwise, why would he care? It's the same thing with Jeff Sessions. Why did he care so much that Jeff Sessions recused himself from the Russia investigation? Because he wanted Jeff Sessions to protect him. What's really interesting is that this is a president who doesn't kind of hide his motives very much. He's pretty much out there. And the argument that his supporters make is it's legitimate on his part. He's the head of the executive branch. He is entitled under Article 2 of the Constitution to make his choice about who runs what investigation and so forth. But it certainly, invites critics to say that that's an abuse of power. That's not appropriate. And there's a reason why other presidents would never do this kind of thing, because at the very least, it raises questions and looks bad.
A larger question to the congressman, quickly. How many people does he have to fire? How many prosecutors? He fires the FBI director, the deputy FBI director, the attorney general. He tries to fire the U.S. attorney in New York, going after his guy Cohen. How many examples of obstruction of justice do we need before the Congress of the United States sees that as impeachable? Your thoughts?
Well, I've always said, I think that impeachment is the last resort, not the first step. The investigation is going on. We've got to gather all the evidence and then, come to a decision about this.
You haven't decided yet yourself?
No, as a former prosecutor in Illinois, we always said investigate and then prosecute. This is a very heavy decision, as you know, Chris, and I think you have to go through the steps and you have to uncover all evidence. But one thing that unifies our caucus, I just want to point this out, is we all believe in very strong oversight and pursuing the investigation wherever the facts lead.
Well, don't wait for the Republicans. Anyway, meanwhile, federal prosecutors are seeking emails and documents related to Michael Cohen's claim the president was dangling a pardon after Cohen's offices were raided by the FBI last April. The New York Times reports prosecutors are seeking records on communications between President Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, and Attorney General Bob Costello. The report notes in one of the emails sent by Mr. Costello in April 2018, after a conversation with Mr. Giuliani, he assured Mr. Cohen, "We'll sleep well tonight. You have friends in high places." Well, in a statement to NBC News, Costello called Cohen's interpretation of events utter nonsense, and Giuliani disputed that he ever dangled the possibility of a pardon. In his statement, Cohen's current lawyer, Lanny Davis, would not comment on the comments, saying, as a general matter from my own past experience, it is impossible to deny or try to spin your way out of what documents say. Peter, I got to ask you a larger question about this president politically. As history books are written, all these indictments, all these sentencing of all these people, Michael Cohen, George Papadopoulos, Michael Flynn, Roger Stone coming up, Rick Gates coming up, Manafort, of course. I've never seen such a bathtub ring of hell around a president.
Well,
how's he get reelected with that left behind his first term?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've kind of come to be, inured to some of this stuff, and let's not forget that the sentencing of Paul Manafort today, that's his campaign chairman. It might not be his personal best friend. But this is the person he chose to run his campaign, and while the crimes aren't directly related to the campaign, it's the first time I can remember a campaign chairman for a president of the United States convicted and sentenced to years in prison since John Mitchell during Watergate. That's a big deal still, and you're right. There's a lot of others around him who have committed crimes, lied to prosecutors or investigators. And at some point, does that redound to the president himself? But I think, to a lot of people who support him, it just looks like the deep state going after Trump for political reasons, for partisan reasons. They see this as part of a conspiracy to take him down, and they delegitimize some of these prosecutions and investigations.
Congressman, I can think of 3 East Coast states where they have a history of criminality in public office. I won't name them. We all know those 3 states. People manage to get reelected over and over again in those 3 states because they get used to crooks in public life. Have the American people gotten used to crooks in the White House, crooks around the White House, so much that all these sentencings are going on, and they might conceivably reelect the man in the center, the ringmaster?
Well, I'm from Illinois, so I don't know what you're talking about in terms of corruption.
Oh, you mean all those governors? Go ahead.
The numbers don't lie, Chris. I mean, there are 34 individuals or entities who've been indicted by Special Counsel Mueller, 17 outside investigations, not including those in Congress, 8 cabinet secretaries against whom ethics allegations have been alleged, 5 individuals going to prison, many of whom were his chief aides, and we haven't even started talking about Jared Kushner. I mean, this is really a big problem, and I don't think the American people, I hope, they're not going to accept this in 2020.
Well, Congressman, you're very genteel to offer up your state of Illinois. I didn't consider that on my list of East Coast states that have had ethics problems and criminal problems at the highest level year after year after year. Thank you so much. U.S. Congressman